everyone, and welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us. My guest today, Risa Williams, is a great friend of our show. She'll be familiar to a lot of you that have been with us for a long time. She's actually come back for the third episode, which I think is a bit of a record so far. Really good.
Do I get a certificate?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Before I share with the newer listeners a little bit about you, Risa, what's the key takeaway, the one thing we're going to sort of focus on specifically that will help people in this episode?
So my newest book, The Ultimate Time Management Toolkit, focuses on how your emotions, the emotions you're experiencing, change your perspective of time and the way you're experiencing your time. So in other words, your emotional framework is either shrinking or stretching your perception of time.
That is such a key thing. I've actually read the book as well, big fan. And that was one of the key kind of quotes that stuck out to me, that when you're under high stress, your perception of time narrows.
Yes.
And I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That really helped me at the time. So that's good. So if you don't catch anything else, please stay with us, catch the whole episode. But just that nugget can really help you reframe certain things when you're in high stress scenarios. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so for those that don't know, Risa was with us last year and she shared some of the practical tools from her book then, The Ultimate Anxiety Toolkit. And that's episode 352. So make sure you catch that one after this. Now she's back with us, as she said, to talk about helping us manage our time better. So Risa's a licensed therapist and productivity coach. She specializes in anxiety management and time management as well. She's written several books. She's a professor and a wellness writer, and she's starting a podcast that's called The Motivation Mindset. So she's a very busy person helping lots of different people, and she's taken time out of her schedule to chat with us. So we're really pleased that you're with us. Thanks for joining us, Risa.
Thanks so much for having me. I always enjoy talking to you. We always have such fun in our conversations.
Yes, I always learn a lot from you, which is really good. And then that ripples down to the clients that I help as well. So it's a win-win all round. And hopefully everybody listening really going to enjoy this episode as well. We all kind of struggle to some extent with managing time, don't we? I think there's different pressures that happen.
Yeah, we have a lot on our plate these days with everything coming at us, multiple responsibilities, information overload. So I think I started writing this for adults with ADHD because that is a population I work with. Yeah. But what I found was that the executive functioning tools really apply to everyone. There isn't anyone out there that doesn't struggle sometimes with these types of things, like prioritizing your schedule, organizing your time. It's really something that everybody these days needs help with to a certain degree.
Yeah. People within sort of chronic stress, high pressure jobs as well. Just maybe let's jump back slightly, because as we were chatting beforehand, your path has been interesting that's got you to this point. Started off as a ballet dancer, now you're a clinical psychotherapist. So unpack just in a few moments, unpack part of that.
Unpack my entire existence in a few moments. I've worn lots of hats and I've traveled down a lot of roads, and it hasn't always been linear. But I started out in the performing arts. I studied ballet. I actually studied in London briefly, but also with the New York City Ballet School, Pennsylvania Ballet, and I was pretty competitive in my ballet pursuits. And what that gave me was a strong willpower and determination and a sense of discipline. And I think as far as time management, it really helped me because you work so hard as a dancer. Dancers are some of the hardest working people. And it taught me how to be extremely focused when I need to. It also, gave me some things that weren't as positive in terms of it made me very hard on myself, and it made my self-talk very, negative in certain areas. So I've had to learn to take that and fix it. But I think the positives it gave me were definitely related to time management to a certain extent and discipline.
Yeah. And you also help dancers and people in performing arts as well now, don't you, amongst a plethora of other clients?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients now are performing artists, people who perform on stage, a lot of athletes and dancers as well. So it's nice to be able to speak their language and kind of come to those sessions with an understanding of what they've been through and how hard they've worked as well. I eventually went to school for writing, and I was a writer for a long time before I became a therapist. And it lent itself well, because I was always so interested in psychology from a writing point of view. Like, how do you write better characters? How do you understand people better in order to create better writing? And then once I went back to school for psychology to get a graduate degree, I realized I really, really liked the idea of helping people and studying different modalities of therapy. And so now I've come full circle back to writing after traveling down many paths. But yeah, it's been an interesting journey for sure. And I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot about other people as well.
Yeah. And it's really good that you're sharing it in the way that you do, backed by the science and the kind of the understanding from the psychological perspective as well. But the tools are very practical. That's one of the things I think anybody that picks up the book and starts looking at it, and as we'll dig into a few of the tools in a moment, they're straightforward enough to apply, in the sense of you can understand how to apply them and what to do. The challenge is making sure we do it, isn't it? With anything else, knowing doing it, yeah.
And kind of custom tailoring it to your own needs. It's very easy to read a self-help book and think, oh, that makes a lot of sense. That, yeah, I should do that. But then applying it is a whole different story. So I try to put a lot of visual metaphors, illustrations, things that will stick in your head so that you can retain the information in a simpler way. But I also have worksheets, which I know that you've done a few. And if you actually do the worksheets, I think it helps you integrate the knowledge in an easier way that you can apply it to everyday situations. So if you really take the time to write things out, it helps your brain in a number of ways, in terms of remembering things, but also understanding how you can take what parts of the tool work for you and apply it, sometimes in small percentages instead of seeing it in extremes, like you have to fix everything automatically. Sometimes you just take a tiny step forward with an idea, and it opens up new doors for you in terms of how you're approaching things and experiencing time.
Yeah,
as well.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of the tools, they're interlinked. They dovetail well with each other, don't they? You don't have to just have one and try and master that. There's 2 or 3 that I've found that actually work together and tie in well. So hopefully we've created enough suspense about the tools, and we'll dig into them. The book is kind of split into sort of 5 areas, in the sense of managing time, getting organized, motivation, achieving goals, and sort of the calm, confident perspective as well. So it's one of the things that I sort of realized when I was first looking at it was, you could manage time in the sense of getting a structure or practice or habits of doing activities, but you tackle a lot more than that, as in you help us manage our energy and our focus, so that the time we have is not just spent doing the activities that we know we need to do, but we're sharp, we're as prepared as we can because of the tools that we've used. And I found that firsthand as well. Maybe I'll share that a little bit later, but we'll see how we get into the time, because there's lots of tools we could talk about. I know they're all going to help the people listening. Maybe let's start off with the task intensity meter.
Sure. So the task intensity meter, what I was trying to do was explain kind of an abstract thing, which is our concept of time, right? And how we approach tasks, and how we sometimes get a little wonky with the way we're approaching things. So it starts out and it's talking about our level of stress. And sometimes we get to the end of the day and we don't know why we're so stressed out. Obviously, there are things that are not related to this that might stress you out, like confrontation or running late or problems, this kind of stuff. But sometimes it's what tasks you did and the order you did them in that has stressed you out. And the reason for that is because every task you're taking on has a certain intensity for most people. So intensity, when I talk about it like that, is like the level of stress you're experiencing when you're thinking about doing the task and actually doing the task. An example would be, for instance, if I have to fill out an insurance form or do paperwork, my task intensity meter would shoot all the way up to high, because I don't particularly like doing paperwork. For me, that's a stressful task. For another person, that's so low intensity for them. They like it, they know they're good at it. So that would be low. So I have low, mid, high settings. And what I'm asking people to do is really get honest with themselves about how stressful certain tasks are, even what we think of as simple everyday tasks, like doing laundry or chores around the house or cleaning out your garage or this kind of thing. If you start to get really honest and embrace that idea, you'll start to notice things that maybe you haven't really been gauging all that well. So for instance, you might have an unrealistic expectation of yourself that everything should be a low intensity task, or this is low intensity for so-and-so, so therefore it's low intensity for me. Or like, why can't I do 20 tasks all in a row? It might be because they're all high intensity tasks for you. Or it might be that your daily threshold of what you can handle as a high intensity task is like 2 or 3 high intensity tasks. So you want to start looking through that lens and then organize your schedule so you're not overstacking the high intensity tasks for you. Again, this is custom tailored to you. So it's different for every single person I work with. And it requires being a mindful observer of how you're reacting to something in front of you to do. But it also kind of explains why we procrastinate certain things over others. And if we really look at that through this lens, we can start to kind of predict how we're going to act in the future when we get assigned tasks that we have to do, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I was just thinking as well, like take one step out of your current scenario as well, for people that are leading teams as well. Not everybody is going to do the same tasks to the same intensity, or it won't feel the same intensity to them as it is to you, partly because of the way we're wired. Some people are very good with structure, detail, organization. Other people, their giftings and strengths are in different parts, and they find it very difficult to do structure and lots of sort of sequential activities. For people that are leading teams, just bear in mind as well that not everyone on your team is going to function the way you do. And if you're giving them certain workloads and tasks, you have to allow them to, like you say, get to know who they are and what sort of areas will be more stressful for them, what activities, and help them plan their day. Give them enough freedom where you can to plan what they do when, if it hasn't got a knock-on effect with someone else. It's such a key thing.
I think this gives us a language to speak to each other, though, that might remove certain stigmas or shame we feel, right? If I say this is a high intensity task and someone else is saying, well, it's a low intensity task, it's giving us a language we can speak. So when you're talking about a team of people and managing a team, it gives us an idea of, oh, I never thought having this many meetings in a row would be high intensity for so-and-so. But it is for so many people. Meetings are high intensity, right? Filling out reports, sometimes high intensity. And we misread our own energy so much of the time, and our own mental energy level so much of the time. It's quite possible that we're misreading other people as well, right? We are completely probably not gauging their mental energy and their physical energy, because we can barely do that with ourselves half the time. And you see that a lot lately, especially since the pandemic's hit. People aren't reading their mental energy as well and their physical energy, and they're wondering why they feel burnt out, why they feel so tired. So this was just a simple tool to get people practicing that a little bit, but I think it has so many applications, and you can look at your schedule and think, okay, well, after lunch, I have this meeting scheduled, and meetings are high intensity for me. So therefore, I shouldn't go right into writing that report I've been avoiding after the meeting. I need to space it out. I need to let the stress levels come down a little bit, because as you know, when cortisol is released into our system, it takes a while for our body and brain to reset. So when you've experienced something that feels stressful to you, you need to give yourself buffers to recalibrate so that your mental energy can re-engage and focus, and not just have an unrealistic expectation on yourself that you should be able to handle things regardless of how you're experiencing them emotionally, because it does affect you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you kind of touched on it right at the top of the conversation about the emotional state that we're in at any given time potentially will affect how we would rate the intensity of those tasks as well, isn't it? I could hit one task really well one day, but if I've had a disturbed night, or I've had a disagreement, or whatever that's thrown me out emotionally, coming back to the same task, it then suddenly might drain me more or less depending on my experience as well. And it's knowing yourself, as you said, is such a key thing. That's the coach in you coming out. I like that. That's good.
And kind of accepting where you're at. So some days you just wake up and you're not as clear and your attention isn't as focused. And, you know, sometimes it's wired to our physical energy. Maybe you're sick, maybe you're dealing with a lot of responsibilities, other stress, relationship stress, all this other stuff. So you sit down and let's say I'm trying to write a chapter of my book and I just can't, it's not flowing. And what people often do is they beat themselves up. They say, well, last week I sat down and I wrote 2 chapters and what's wrong with me today? And that's just adding a whole nother layer on top of the struggle. You know, you're already struggling with your mental clarity, and then beating yourself up on top of it is like a secondary layer that now you've made that task pretty impossible to complete for yourself in a short amount of time. Whereas if we go sort of more with where is my energy level at? And there's the gear shifter tool in my book as well to kind of rate your general energy. So it would be like high gear, middle gear, low gear, like a car you're driving. And when you're in high gear, you can go really fast and maybe you're feeling very focused and clear-headed. But no one can really stay in high gear for long stretches of time. We can do it in short bursts. And sometimes, you know, writers will tell me, or people who focus for long periods of time will say, well, I can do that sometimes for 3 hours straight. And that can be a really good feeling because you're in the flow, but it's having an effect on your body too. So while I could write 3 chapters in one sitting, I might be burning my physical energy out at the same time. So it's kind of keeping different levels. You're aware of the different levels in your body. Yes, I can do this, but it's going to cost me later, right? Physically. Mid-level, mid-gear would be like you're working at a not so fast pace, but you're able to kind of keep your emotional stuff in check, right? Not let yourself get too emotionally wonky. Low gear would be like you're just coasting, and sometimes you need to kick it up into high gear because you have a deadline, but low gear can be a good place to go when you're taking your mental state into consideration, right? When you want to stay really calm and relaxed and not get too stressed out. So again, none of these are like you have to be in one all the time. We're constantly fluctuating. It's getting to know yourself more. It's getting to know, where do I need to go in the next hour to get this done? And what are some easy ways I can get myself there? Instead of the way we tend to go, where we just put a lot of pressure on ourselves, we beat ourselves up mentally. And then we also expect ourselves to be in high gear, hyper-focused, hyper-productive all the time, which is completely unrealistic to expect this of ourselves, of our teams, of our coworkers or our partners as well.
Yeah. Not all tasks are equal, are they?
Yeah,
really
exactly.
Yeah, no, that's really good. That's really helpful as well. So kind of linked to that as well, you mentioned time buffers. That's another tool, isn't it? I think they're really useful. I've certainly benefited from being more consciously aware of putting them in my routine as well. Explain what a time buffer is for people that haven't yet heard of it or read the book.
So it's basically a deliberate break you're scheduling in between things. And the way I like to look at it is, if you've just done a high intensity task, you need a time buffer afterwards to step away, get some clarity, breathe, you know, get away from the computer for even 20 minutes, go for a walk, step outside, just let your brain settle before you go into the next task, whatever it is. And lots of time management techniques kind of highlight these types of breaks. I think the more intense a task is, the longer a break you need, just from a neuroscience perspective, like what's going on in your brain and what needs to settle down. But really, any break is good. And you can have different types of time buffers. So you can have the more relaxing ones. You can have ones where you're just doing a task that is not so harsh on your brain, you can have ones that involve movement, where you get up and you go for a walk. I always encourage clients, especially the ones that work from home, to try to go outside, to try to even just sit on the porch or your patio or your balcony and just connect with what's around you. So it's bringing your brain and body back together into alignment by being in the present moment, by not being in front of a screen, by kind of looking around at what's going on around you. And they say looking at any kind of greenery, nature, plants, this slows our perception of time down. So even if you could just look out at a view outside your window and breathe into that moment and kind of connect with nature or things around you, you're settling your brain down in a really beneficial way that will help you in what you need to do next.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that's not pulling up a picture on your laptop of a plant and looking at it, actually getting out and away from the screen stuff. So yeah,
because like I talk about in the anxiety toolbook as well, you want to switch things up for your brain. You want to do different things with your brain. When we're at the computer all day long, we're locked into a certain mode in our brain. We're not switching it up. We need that mental flexibility throughout our day. We need downtime. That's how our brain processes memories and retains information, but it's also how we get inspiration. So sometimes when you're out for that walk or just getting a glass of water somewhere and taking a second to drink it, that's when ideas pop into your head. That's when you get those moments of, oh, that's what I need to do to solve that problem, which we don't get when we're in the same mode all the time, because our brain needs different things throughout the day.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. That's why I get inspiration when I'm brushing my teeth, because I've stopped the other activities and my mind's almost got a chance to catch up and inspire me with something. Also going for a walk as well. Since I started reading about time buffers and that, I planned in short walks in the garden throughout the day. Generally helps me connect with nature, as you say, but also just that's when I do get inspired more, because I'm away from my normal activity, and then I come back inspired with ideas which I can incorporate as well. So makes a lot of sense. Would it, just on that, would it be kind of, if you're doing a very mentally taxing activity, so say you're writing or you're doing analysis or whatever, to then get up, and the movement, it's the physical aspect, isn't it? So that helps, I guess, being the contrast, the stimuli that you mentioned. Whereas I suppose for people that are very active physically, in whatever your vocation or job might be, to then kind of have a tea break, whatever, and to sit and to think and to kind of use the mental faculty. Is that a good sort of?
Yeah, I like that. I like what you're saying, because you're kind of gauging what you've been doing a lot of, and then consciously doing the opposite of that, right? So let's say, sometimes when I'm teaching, I'm on my feet and I'm walking around a lot and I'm like up, and my energy is really high. That would be an example of I'm in high gear and I need to bring it down to low gear, before I go home and kind of relax for the evening. So what would I do? I will sit there, drink a cup of tea for a second, maybe just sit outside of my car before I go in the commute home and take a few deep breaths. So I'm kind of centering myself. But again, if you're doing the opposite where you need to get motivated, sometimes people say going for a run or a quick walk, or even just getting up and stretching, moving your body would be helpful. Because again, it's about connecting the brain to the body, bringing ourselves back home and getting into the present moment and reading those levels that are going off inside of us.
Yeah.
So all of these things help, and all of them help us stretch time in a pleasurable way for ourselves, rather than just going by default, which is just we're in that stressed out, high gear mode, but our stress is rising and we're not taking into consideration the overall effect that's having on us emotionally.
Yeah. This is good stuff. This is certainly helping. I know that there's there's lots of other tools I want to talk about. Would like to get to the bookends one. Before we do that, though, the wall crusher sounds interesting. That one a little bit for us.
So it's based on the idea of this imaginary wall of resistance that springs up when you are feeling like something is a high intensity task ahead of you. So let's say, you're avoiding writing a report for work and you have a deadline. And every time you think about it, you're like, no, I'm going to put that off. It's sort of what happens when you get stuck in a procrastination cycle with something. It feels like an impenetrable wall and you're not really sure what it is, but you just keep avoiding the task. So part of that is, I believe our brain is always listening to the words we tell it about the task and about our ability to do the task.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of neuroscience studies that back this up, in that the way we talk to ourselves about something we have to do directly correlates to us doing it, first of all, and us feeling motivated to do it and our levels of confidence to complete it. So an example of that is, if you're saying, this is the worst task ever, it's a nightmare, I hate it so much, I hate writing reports, it's the worst, it's killing me. All these things are very dramatic, negative things that we're saying. And sometimes we're saying it for comedic effect inside our heads or, whatever, but our brain is just hearing stress. Our brain is like, task equals stress.
Yeah.
So we need to learn to control what we're saying about the task. Like, this is an unpleasant task I have to do, but if I take it one step at a time, I'll get there. Or I know I can figure it out in tiny chunks. Or if looking at this task scares me, I'm going to break it down into something so easy that I can move forward. These are easier ways to talk to yourself about something you don't want to do. Or you could say, writing reports has not been pleasant in the past. Maybe I can approach this one differently from a calmer state of mind, all these things. But again, it's also how you're talking to yourself about yourself. So a lot of times when clients will have a huge amount of resistance to a task, it's because the words they're telling themselves about completing it's engaging their inner critic a lot. They're saying things like, I never finish tasks like these. I'm terrible at doing this. I'm the worst ever at writing this report. I'm so bad. My supervisor's going to hate it. Again, this is like adding the resistance. So imagine it's a wall and it's just building itself up brick by brick. The more I don't know how to do this, I'm terrible at this. It's just getting bigger and bigger. The way to break it down, the wall crushing part, is to start engaging your motivational self-talk a little more. And sometimes just saying that, people have a reaction like, oh, I can't just tell myself I'm so great. It's introducing little things I call micro thoughts, which are like gentle thoughts that you don't necessarily have to tell yourself how great you are, but you do have to be a little more soothing in the way you're talking to yourself. So some obvious ones from the books are like, I'm figuring it out. I'm just going to take it at my own pace. I'm going to move step by step. And each step I take, I'm going forward a little bit. And so I'll get there in time. These are gentle things you might say to another person. It's about learning how to be that voice to yourself. I'm learning as I go. I figured out a lot of things before. I'm sure I'll figure this out in time. And I'm breaking things down. And I'm learning and growing. And all of this is growth because it's leading me to a new outcome and to a new skill. So it's sort of going into the growth mindset more, which gets us out of the inner critic mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes so much sense when you put it like that. And like, you're creating a positive environment to operate in, aren't you? It just within your head, within your kind of your approach to something as well. Yeah, makes such a difference. Sadly, the wall doesn't stay down, does it? We have to. You
can easily rebuild it again if you just start the negative self-talk up, unfortunately. And this goes back to sort of my background in dance or working with athletes. Athletes are taught this, coaches, good coaches, athletic coaches, if you think about a basketball coach or somebody who's extremely inspiring and motivating. It's like, you got this, get back up, keep going, you can do it. Let's go, right? Those are the things they're saying from the sidelines. And a terrible coach is telling you, you screwed it all up. You ruined it for the whole team, right? Like, those kinds of things are not going to motivate a person. What motivates a person is that keep going. You've got this, take it slow. You're going to get there. And that's what we build up, that momentum to take the wall down. But you get better and better at it. And you get better at seeing yourself build the wall and catching it before the wall gets too big. So I think that's the trick, is like, it doesn't happen instantly, but the more you practice and catch yourself saying things like, oh, I don't want to do that, that's the worst. You're like, wait a minute. Like, let's not take that idea too far. Let's walk it back a little.
Yeah.
That's where the growth comes in. That's where you're changing things in small percentages. And eventually it kind of clicks more automatically for you.
Yeah. Yeah. The dialogue changes, the inner dialogue changes, doesn't it, over a period of time, if you stay with it. Yeah. Yeah. And we can also be the positive kind of coach, inspirer to other people as well. When we see other people that are struggling or procrastinating or whatever, we can help. It's still, we listen to ourselves more than we hear anybody else, don't we? But just, we can also come in and help, our team members or whatever, with a bit of encouragement. So yeah, it's not so bad. Yeah, you've done that before. You're right. A lot of the time we're our worst enemy, because we're more critical of ourselves than maybe would be of other people.
Yeah, and as I like to say, anxiety always convinces you that you have no idea what you're doing and you can't figure it out, and it's going to be a disaster. And so if you see someone in that cycle, often what you're just witnessing is their own anxiety. And you have to remind them sometimes, hey, you've figured out so many things before. Pretty much every day you're figuring things out. And of course you're going to figure this out too. And sometimes that's just the little bit of boost somebody needs to get themselves back in that mindset again. But yeah, often that's what anxiety sounds like when it talks to us, for sure.
It's really good, really good. We're going to stretch this episode slightly, just because I wanted to touch on the bookends briefly, because I think it dovetails in well with how to crush the wall as well, from the sort of first thing in the morning. Briefly, tell us a little bit about the bookends.
So the day bookends tool is the idea that is very helpful for a lot of people to have a morning ritual they do and a nighttime ritual they do. And these are like self-care rituals that you can work out for yourself, but I give some examples in the book. And it's a way to transition from rest to work and then work to rest. Basically, what you're aiming for is, in the morning, you're coming out of rest. You don't want to leap right into work stress, like that cortisol awakening response, where your cortisol just shoots up and you have so much to do, and the negative tirade of thoughts has already started before you've gotten up and had coffee, even sometimes. So it's about learning to gently glide into your day. And then again, at night, you don't want to overwork yourself, be so stressed out, be checking your work emails up until right when you fall asleep, because you're not giving yourself that gentle transition. And that's not good for your emotional state. And it's also not good for how you're experiencing and enjoying your time and learning to stretch out the calmer moments. So I try to train people to use some of the tools that are more morning-based tools for the morning. And then at night, the main tool for night is try not to do stress-inducing activities at night. This sounds obvious, but like, put the phone away for a little while. Don't check your work email sometimes. Don't be on a screen. Try to do nothing. Try to let things settle down in your body. Sometimes you can meditate, do deep breathing, journal, read. Again, it's custom tailored to you, what you find relaxing, but you're consciously and deliberately doing it as a ritual and a routine, instead of just thinking, oh yeah, I should read more. And you're not reading, you're just on Twitter all night long, doom scrolling, or doing these things and then expecting yourself to sleep and sleep well. We have to manually switch gears in this way, especially in this day and age where everything is on our phones and everything is demanding our attention all the time. We have to deliberately shift ourselves into these states and make it a fun thing for yourself to do that you start to look forward to doing at night, because it's going to have a good outcome the next day on your mindset when you wake up. Yeah,
absolutely. This is so practical. It's really helpful. Thank you for all that you're sharing. I'd love to dig into the book more, but for everybody listening, definitely get a copy of the book. Available anywhere and everywhere, I'm guessing?
Yes, it's available worldwide. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes & Noble. You can go to my website, risawilliams.com. I'm also launching a podcast called the Motivation Mindset Podcast, which discusses tools from the book and features experts talking about their favorite tools from other books as well. And I'm also going to have people trying out the tools as experiments as some of the episodes. So it should be fun.
Wow. Yeah, no, absolutely. And this is book 2 of a trilogy, isn't it? Tell us a little bit about the next one.
The next one is called the Ultimate Self-Esteem Toolkit, and it comes out in March of next year. And that one will be tackling confidence issues and self-esteem and how we can have greater self-compassion for ourselves, which I think is so important in these times. So many people are struggling with all these things, with time management, self-esteem, and anxiety. So I was trying to tackle those in a practical way that people can apply to their everyday life situations.
Brilliant. Yeah, just gets better, doesn't it? First bring out the anxiety toolkit, now the management one, and then the self-esteem. It's going to be really good. Yeah,
Thank you.
I like the aspect of their tools. So some of them you're going to use more often, but if you've got them all in your toolkit, they're there for when you want to pick them up and actually when you need to use them. It's really a good way of doing it. I think it's a really good kind of different perspective about time management. Lots of practical principles, but also the approach, managing your energy, your focus, where you are at any point, your state really when you approach something is such a key element to it as well, which is why they work as well as they do. So brilliant. I knew we'd run out of time. It's always good to chat with you. Thanks for everything that you shared. Also, thank you for writing the book as well. It's helped me. I know it's going to help a lot of people as well.
Thank you for trying out the tools. I really appreciated that you told me that you used them, especially the brain warm-up. That was so exciting to hear. And thank you for having me on your show. I always have fun talking to you. You're always so positive and supportive, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. No, it's good. Yeah, no, we have fun. We have fun. For everybody listening, we didn't touch on the brain warm-up one. I won't tell you about it now. Get the book, try it out yourself. I found it really beneficial. Really have. Yeah, every day I use that one to sharpen my focus before I start tasks. So it's really good. Right, let's wrap it up for now. Don't forget to catch Risa's other episode as well. Scroll back through the shows, catch that one. She's talking about the anxiety toolkit as well. Grab a copy of the book and head to risawilliams.com. That was the website, wasn't it? Best way to touch base with you.
And the books are at the ultimatetoolkitbooks.com, but you can also find them on Amazon as well.
Perfect. Yeah, sounds good. We should definitely get Amazon to sponsor us. Need to talk to Jeff about that, I think.
Yeah, get on that, Trevor.
Definitely. Yeah.
It's a good one.
So thanks again. And for everybody joining us, just one or two of the tools that we've shared just in the time we've had together, you can start putting them into practice straight away. Find out what works for you. As Risa said, we're all slightly different in the way we approach things, the different things going on in our lives, but the tools are practical and they'll work for you. And if you can optimize an extra percentage of your time every day, that builds over time with exponential return. So definitely worth doing. We'll leave you with that. I'll let you think about how you're going to make use of the things we've shared going forwards. But thank you for joining us. We will catch you on the next episode. Remember that we believe in you and we believe in your potential. Bye for now.